Welcome to Beach House 34. This is the Avery trial. Before we jump in to today's testimony, here's a really quick recap of episode 2. If you haven't heard that one yet, I'll link to it above if you're watching this on YouTube, and I'll also add it to the show's description. Now, as a reminder, Patreon members get early access to all of these transcripts for a mere $5 a month. Visit patreon.com/beachhouse34. Okay, so we heard the opening statement from Steven Avery's defense attorney, Dean Strang. And unlike the prosecution and his grandstanding, Steve's attorney came in really calm and really steady. He reminded the jury that Steven had already been wrongfully convicted once back in 1985 for a brutal that he did not commit. He sat in prison for 18 years, while the real guy who did this, Gregory Allen, continued to assault women. It wasn't until 2003 that DNA testing finally cleared Avery. And yeah, he sued Manitowoc County for $36 million. Strang pointed out how right as this lawsuit started to really get some traction, Teresa Halbach disappeared. And once again, Avery was their guy. There was no body, no blood, no real evidence. But within 35 minutes of her car being found, officers were already asking, is he in custody yet? And who's asking this? It's the same two guys, Lank and Colburn, who had just been deposed in Avery's lawsuit. The same officers who kept showing up in Avery's trailer, his garage, and eventually found Teresa's car key after multiple searches previously had turned up nothing. Strang raised some really serious questions. Why was Steven Avery the only one under the microscope? Why were human bone fragments found in multiple locations? And if Avery really did commit murder, why dump the body and all of the evidence right outside of his own bedroom window? The defense wasn't asking the jury to consider Avery's innocence. They were asking them to slow down, to recognize the tunnel vision that had already failed him once before. And we begin today's episode with the state calling their first witness, which is Mike Halbach, who is Teresa Halbach's brother. So the jury was given a short break, and they have now come back into the room. They have been seated. All the attorneys are in the room, and the judge starts it off. And he says, at this time, the state may call its first witness. And attorney Kratz, Ken Kratz, says, state will call Mike Halbach, Your Honor. The clerk says, please raise your right hand. And Michael D. Halbach, called as a witness herein, having been first duly sworn, was examined and testified as follows. And the clerk says, please be seated. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record. Michael Daniel Halbach, Halbach. And the direct examination is done by attorney Kratz. Mr. Halbach, did you know a young woman by the name of Teresa Halbach? I did. Describe who was Teresa, please. Teresa was, or is, my sister. She was born on March 22nd, 1980, grew up with my family on a dairy farm near Hilbert. She loved travel. She had been to Spain, Mexico, New Zealand, Australia. She had many friends. She loved doing things with her friends. She was a good friend of mine as well. She was my big sister, someone I could go to talk to about any problems I would have. We would go to lunch, talk about her business, which she ran, called Photography by Teresa. And in August of 2005, she coached her sister's 7th grade volleyball team to second place in their league. So I know that that's something she really loved doing, was working with those kids. That was the main focus of her photography business as well. And she graduated from the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay in 2002, major in photography, and she graduated summa cum laude. I'm going to hand you a couple of exhibits. First exhibit is that which is marked as exhibit number 1. Could you tell us what that is, please? It's a photo of Teresa. You mentioned that Teresa was part of your family. Can you tell us who else was involved in your immediate family, please? I have an older brother, Tim, and then Teresa would be the second oldest, myself, and two younger sisters, Katie and Kelly. Parents, Tom and Karen. Directing your attention to exhibit number 2. I am also putting that on the screen for the jury. Can you tell us what that is, please? It's a photo we took outside my parents' farm. I believe it was in 2004, that summer, early fall. It's a photo we used for our Christmas cards that year, and it's a photo of my family. And as you are pointing to exhibit number 2, please, could you tell us, or tell the jury, who all is in that photo? Tom, Teresa's, I guess legally would be her stepdad, standing in the back with the jean shirt. To his left is Katie, younger sister, and to her left is Kelly, the youngest of the family. In front, from left to right, is the oldest brother, Tim, and then my mom, Karen, then myself holding our dog, Eddie, and Teresa is on the end. All right. How often would you get to see Teresa? How often would you interact with her? Every few days, I would probably talk to her either on the phone, or if it was a weekend, we would probably see each other. If I was at my parents' house, if she would stop over during the week or over the weekend. So I would see her, or at least talk to her every 3 days or so. Are you familiar with Teresa's electronic devices that she owned? Yes, I am. Could you tell us about those, please? She owned a cell phone, a Motorola Razr, and I know this because she talked on it a lot. She also had a Palm Pilot. I believe the brand was Palm One, I believe. She had tons of photography equipment, obviously. Hasselblad is one camera, Canon is another. And through one of her jobs, she had a little snapshot camera for the job. She worked through Auto Trader magazine. She had this little snapshot camera to do that job. Do you know what kind of vehicle Teresa drove? It was a Toyota RAV4. It was bluish green in color. We're going to have the actual photo marked as an exhibit, but I'm going to direct your attention up to the large screen. Could you tell us what it is we're looking at there? Could you repeat that? Sure. I'm about to have this photo made part of or to complete the record, but could you tell us, and can you look at the large screen and tell us what it is we're looking at? That's Teresa holding one of her cameras she had with her professional photography business, standing outside the driver's side door of her Toyota RAV4. Mr. Halbach, regarding Teresa's RAV4, could you tell us how often you had contact with that vehicle? I would say I have ridden in it a few times, but I would see it whenever I saw her. It was her only vehicle. So when she would drive it or when she would drive around, she would be in that vehicle. So I was very familiar with it and had ridden in it a few times. Teresa's license plate said, as you sit here today, did you know or were you familiar with what Teresa's license plates were? Yes, I was. And how are you familiar with that? One of Teresa's jokes and how she remembered her license plate or license plate numbers or letters and numbers were SWH 582. She remembered those letters because she would joke that it stood for single white Halbach. And at this point, exhibits number 3 and 4 are marked for identification. Mr. Halbach, I provided you with 2 exhibits, exhibit number 3 and exhibit number 4. Can you tell us, though, what those are, please? Pictures of Teresa's license plate. And which one of them has the sticker on it? Exhibit number 3. All right. Just so the jury is shown exhibit number 3, I'm going to direct your attention to the large screen again. What is it that we're looking at? Teresa's license plate? SWH 582. Is that right? That's correct. The court then says, excuse me, Mr. Kratz, just for the record, I think the photo of Teresa Halbach with the RAV4 was referred to as an exhibit, but we haven't marked it yet. Are you still looking for the original? Attorney Kratz then says, we are, Judge. Although we have the original, Judge, we'll be referring to it either with this witness or the next witness who also has familiarity with that. The court then says, I think, to keep the record straight, it should be reflected that while it may have been referred to as an expected exhibit number, it has yet to be numbered. Attorney Kratz then says, all right, Judge. The court says, you may proceed. And the questioning continues by Attorney Kratz. And the other vehicle, or what I guess would be considered the front license plate, you said that was exhibit number 4. Is that right? Yes, that's correct. And I have now directed your attention to that on the large screen, once again, exhibit number 4. The large screen photo here accurately reflects exhibit number 4. Is that correct? Yes, it does. All right. I have now handed you what's been marked for identification as exhibit number 5. Tell us what that is, please. It is the picture we looked at not too long ago with Teresa standing outside the driver's side of her Toyota RAV4. Just for the record, exhibit number 5 then would be the image that we're looking at on the screen now. Is that correct? Yes. All right. By the way, Mr. Halbach, did you have an idea as to when this photo was taken? Did I ask you this? You didn't ask me that? I mean, I would guess sometime maybe 2004, maybe early 2005. I guess the question that the jury needs to know is, was this Toyota RAV4 the vehicle in which your sister is standing in front of, the same vehicle that she was driving at the end of October of 2005? Yes, it is. You mentioned that Teresa was involved in the photography business. Can you tell us about that a little bit? Yeah. Through college, she developed a passion for photography, and hence why she declared that as her major. I would say her sophomore and junior year, she worked at Bay Park Square Mall in Green Bay at Picture People, taking photos of children, mainly families. After she got done doing that, during her last semester at Wisconsin Green Bay, she started this internship with Tom Pierce of Pierce Photography in Green Bay, doing many of the same things, taking pictures of children, families, and also doing weddings on the weekends. So she continued working with him, and then later on in 2002, she started her business, which she named Photography by Teresa, which continued up until Halloween of 2005. Now, you indicated that you are familiar that at least one of her clients was Auto Trader magazine. Is that what you told us? Yes, that's correct. I think it was October of 2004, she started working for Auto Trader magazine as a way to supplement her income for her professional business. Since she was just starting out with her own business, she wouldn't always have clients. So, yeah, just as a way to have some steady income, she got this job with the Auto Trader magazine to take pictures of vehicles in people's yards that they were selling themselves. A first photo I'm showing you has been marked as exhibit number 7. Can you tell us what that is, please? Exhibit number 7 is Canon PowerShot A310. It's the box for the Canon camera. It's not the camera itself. And once again, were you familiar that that was one of the cameras that Teresa had used in her employment? Yes, I am in her employment with Auto Trader. Yes. The other exhibit, I think it was exhibit number 6. Is that correct? That's correct. Can you tell me what that is, please? It's a box for a Palm 1 Zir 31 Palm Pilot. And once again, the large screen, does that accurately depict the box, again, recovered from your sister's home? The box that she saved for her Palm Pilot? Yes, it does. Was your sister kind of a pack rat? Did she save this kind of stuff? Having gone through her stuff, yeah, she saved a lot of stuff. Yes. Was your sister married? No, she's not. Who did she live with? She lived with a friend of hers from high school named Scott Blodorn. He lived in the upstairs of the apartment or of the house she was renting from my parents. How close was this to your parents' house? Down the road a short ways, 8th mile, roughly quarter mile, not too far. Okay, Mike, did you ever have an opportunity to see or talk with your sister as she either went to work for the Auto Trader magazine or as she went to work at her own studio? As she went there? Yes. In other words, were you familiar with how she dressed to go to work? Yes. Can you tell us about that? She would always dress professionally, especially when she was going to her professional photography business, black pants, a nice shirt. And if she happened to be doing Auto Trader that same day, she would go in those same clothes. But if she wasn't going to her job that day, she would dress comfortably, not necessarily in professional clothes, but nice clothes nonetheless. Might be a nice pair of jeans and a nice shirt, or, maybe khakis and a shirt, sweatshirt. Mike, as long as we have the photos, again, what we're looking at here, that's a picture. Which picture is that? Number 6. That is exhibit number 6. We're going to have the actual exhibit marked so that we don't just have a photo of it. And Attorney Kratz then says, Janet, is that going to be number 8? The clerk says, yes. And exhibit number 8 is marked for identification. And then Attorney Kratz says, Mr. Wiegert, could you provide that to the witness? And then he again begins questioning the witness. Mr. Halbach, we're showing you what's marked for identification as exhibit number 8. Hey there, Christine here. I'm interrupting this for just a minute because we are up now to exhibit 8, and then we're soon going to be on exhibit 9. Now, here's the thing. If you dig into the official list of exhibits, these don't even exist. We jump from number 7 to number 10. Here's what actually happened regarding these exhibits. So exhibits number 6 and 7 were 2 separate boxes. One was for Teresa's Palm Pilot and one was for her Canon camera. Later on in this testimony, which is where you're at right now, Kratz again refers to these same exact boxes, but renumbers them as exhibits 8 and 9, basically creating duplicates. So yeah, they're duplicates of previously entered exhibits, but they were marked again during this portion of the testimony. And honestly, it just shows that this part of his questioning felt sloppy. It was unorganized. I mean, they're just beginning this. How do you make such a simple mistake? It wasn't like this was hard to follow. It just added this confusion, which is the last thing that a jury needs during testimony like this. So if you're keeping track and thinking, wait, didn't we already talk about this, or didn't he already talk about this in the transcripts? You are absolutely right. You are not crazy. This is one of those weird things that just happened in the trial. I have not read through the entire trial, so I don't know if this is something that continuously happens, but to have it happen right at the beginning is just, wow, that's just really, really bad. All right, let's get back to the transcript. Can you show the jury and tell them what that is, please? This is the same box as in the exhibit number 6. It's the box for Teresa's Palm 1 Zir 31 Palm Pilot. And if I'm not mistaken, exhibit number 7, I think, was the box for the Canon PowerShot A310. Is that right? That's correct. We're going to have that box actually marked for identification as exhibit number 9. And exhibit number 9 is then marked for identification. Once again, Mr. Wiegert will be providing that to you. If you could show it to the jury and tell them what exhibit number 9 is, please. Exhibit number 9 is the box for the Canon PowerShot, the A310, that Teresa used for her auto trader job. Once again, after your sister's disappearance and after investigators began contacting you specifically and your family, these items were found in her personal effects and turned over. Is that right? That's correct. Can you tell me who Pam Sturm is? Pam Sturm, to me, would be my first cousin once removed. She would be my grandma's sister's daughter. Okay. The involvement of Pam and her daughter, Nicole, after your sister was missing, could you describe that for the jury? You said her involvement? Yes. Pam Sturm was the person who ended up finding Teresa's vehicle on the Avery salvage yard. I recall coming home that day after I had been with my brother driving in her being inside my parents' house crying and my mom telling me that we found the vehicle, or Pam found the vehicle, Pam and her daughter Nicole. So I guess that would be her involvement. All right, let's go back just a little bit, Mike, if we can. After your mom reported your sister missing on the 3rd of November, how was it that you were informed of that? On Thursday, November 3rd, I was working. I got a call from my mom that afternoon at about 2 o'clock or 2:30, wondering if I knew where or if I had talked to my sister in the previous, since Sunday. And I said that I hadn't. And so I went on to call one of Teresa's good friends at her work and asked her if she had known where Teresa could be, because it was completely unlike her to go somewhere without telling anyone, especially a family member, a good friend, her roommate, or her boss. So I guess after we made those calls, it became very evident to me that something was seriously wrong, and I expressed that to my mom. Then shortly after, and she was in agreement, obviously. She knew something was wrong, just like everyone else did. Did the family ask for some assistance, and did you receive it from some of Teresa's friends regarding searching for her? In searching for her, all we had to do was make a couple phone calls to some of Teresa's friends, and they would call numerous other people. We needed help passing out posters on Friday, November 4th, and also doing searches by car on Saturday, the 5th, and doing searches by foot for a few days following that. So whenever we needed help, we had help from Teresa's friends, family members, community members, anyone who wanted to help, who had time, would help us out in searching for Teresa. Who is Ryan Hilligus? Ryan Hilligus, he was Teresa's ex-boyfriend. They were together a few years and then were off a few years once they went to college. And he basically organized most or probably all these search efforts that we did for Teresa. Him, along with Scott Blodorn, did the majority of getting people together and telling people where to go search for Teresa. I ask you to refer back to this photo. Can you tell me what exhibit that is again? Exhibit number 5. Okay. I can see by your sister's physical stature, but if you can just verify for us, was Teresa in good physical condition? Yes, she was. She went to a gym. I don't know how regularly, but she had a membership at a gym and seemed physically fit. Yes. Mike, I think you talked about on the 3rd meeting with your family. And on the 4th, really, the citizen efforts for Teresa's search kind of ramped up. But can you give us any more details about that? Yeah, the day we reported Teresa missing, that Thursday, we had got a call from a man named Jay Breyer who offered his services at Youth Educated in Safety, which is a missing persons organization. He offered to make copies and make up a missing persons poster. So we took him up on that offer that night, finalized the poster, and then the following afternoon, we got copies made. He had made the copies, and around 2 or 2:30 in the afternoon was when we were meeting with whoever had the time and the vehicle to drive across all of Northeast Wisconsin to put up these posters, which basically said, missing person, Teresa Halbach, height, weight, what she was wearing that day. So that's what happened on Friday afternoon. Mike, Mr. Fallon is going to hand you what's been marked for identification as exhibit number 10. I'm going to put it up on the screen for the jurors. Can you tell us what we're looking at, please? That's the missing persons poster that Jay Breyer helped us make that we put up on the 3rd, or the Friday, the 5th, the 4th. Friday the 4th. That's right. Indicates that your sister was 5 feet 6 inches tall, 135 pounds. Is that approximately accurate? Yes. Now, first of all, let me ask you where these posters distributed, if you recall. It would have been a very large area of Northeast Wisconsin, including Appleton, Green Bay, Manitowoc, Chilton, south towards Milwaukee, east to the lake shore. And I recall semi-drivers wanting to, stop at the house, pick up some flyers because they were concerned as well. And they were going to Madison, Milwaukee, and further. So they volunteered to put up posters for us on their routes. Mr. Halbach, let me ask you this. Did you try to recreate from the 31st of October routes that Teresa may have taken? Yes. Yeah, so those were our main areas we wanted to put up these posters, as well as to search by vehicle and by foot, because we could trace her whereabouts to, a certain location. That's where you want to focus most of your efforts. So that's what we did. All right. Perhaps you answered this, and I apologize if you did, but do you recall how many thousands of these posters you distributed? I guess I can't recall specifically, but it would be, probably a couple thousand. All right. Now, we're going to hear from Mr. Hilligus a little bit later in the trial regarding the specifics of the missing persons investigations. But did those search efforts include actually walking around or looking in roadways or ditches? Yeah, that Sunday morning, the 5th, that morning it was about 7 a.m. A group of volunteers met at my sister's house, and we set out by vehicle to basically trace the routes that she may have taken that Monday. And certain people were given different areas. Not necessarily the places she definitely traveled, but perhaps she drove down to Milwaukee to meet with someone or drove up to Door County. So we had people driving in those areas as well. But myself specifically, I went with my brother to the places where we and the routes that we thought for sure she could have taken. Since we were her brothers, we can get in her mind better than anyone. So we drove over there. I can recall specifically driving down Highway 147, getting out, looking down embankments where, if you would drive by casually, you wouldn't be able to see down there. So we thought maybe she had gotten in an automobile accident, was trapped, unconscious, whatever it may be. So we wanted to do what we could to eliminate that possibility. So, we looked wherever we could, drove around as many roads as we could, side roads, back roads, whatever, just looking for signs of her vehicle or Teresa herself. And until that call came, or until the news came on the 5th that Teresa's vehicle had been found, was that your hope that there had been some accident or something? Yeah, I mean, from the start, I think it's just the way my family is we're strong, optimistic, also, realistic too. But yeah, we hoped to find some sign and we hoped we would find Teresa alive. So when we found her vehicle, it was good because we were getting closer to finding Teresa. So we were happy to find the vehicle, but we didn't find Teresa. So that half the goal was missing. We didn't accomplish half the goal when we found the vehicle. All right. Mike, I had mentioned at the early stages of the presentation of this case, in fact, to the jury, about meetings that you had with law enforcement, meetings you had with me individually throughout this case. Have you been kept informed as to the developments and the evidence? Not just that was found, but the evidence that was going to be presented at this case. Yes, we had always were informed in advance of anything, whether it be a news conference, whether it be information that would be submitted to the courthouse and available to the media shortly thereafter. We would always be aware of what was going to be said in the media or whatnot. And in advance of every court hearing, we had been kept informed of what we would hear that day, just so there were no surprises, so we could prepare ourselves emotionally for those events. That includes the physical evidence that is going to be presented at this trial. Yes, that's correct. The last question I have, Mike, and I'm going to apologize in advance as to the insensitivity of it, but at any time after the 31st of October, had you ever seen, spoken from, or heard from your sister, Teresa Halbach? No, I have not. Attorney Kratz then says, I would move the admission of Exhibit 1 through 10. The court says, any objection? Attorney Strang says, no objection at all. The court says, those exhibits are admitted. Attorney Kratz says, no further questions. And the court says, Mr. Strang. And Attorney Strang says, is this working now? The court says, yes, it is. And Attorney Strang says, all right. And the cross-examination by Dean Strang, one of Steven Avery's attorneys, begins. Thanks for coming. And I don't have a lot of questions. I don't want to make this any harder a day for you than it's already been. But we have established that Teresa was 5'6", about 135 pounds back in October of 2005. Yes. Give or take, you said she was fit. She was an athlete to some extent. To some extent, she played a little in high school, but I know she would exercise at our home as well. Sure. Little volleyball. That was her sport, or basketball, or both. Well, she coached her sister's 7th grade volleyball team, so there was definitely an interest there. Was that her sport in high school? She played some. I don't think she played past her sophomore year, but okay. But I mean, somebody who was at least reasonably athletic and fit. Right. In addition to working out at home, she belonged to some private gym somewhere? Correct. Okay. You guys were all raised on a dairy farm. Did you grow up there? Yeah, for the most part. Yeah. Working a dairy farm? Yes. And when you say for the most part, is that not when you were a little bitty boy or up until I was 8 years old I was on the dairy farm? Yes. Okay, sure. And you, the kids, helped out with chores, I assume? Correct. Like all farm kids have to? Yes. That included Teresa? She didn't help out in the barn as much as she helped out in the house, babysitting for our sisters and taking care of chores in the house. She did get acquainted with milking, though, at some point, I assume. Very seldomly. Was that mostly the boys? Yeah, yes. She was someone who had a good sense of humor? Yes. Also could stand up for herself, though. Absolutely. Little bit feisty in a good way? Yes. Yeah. And I don't mean in a bad way, but I mean she was personable. Yes, independent. And your family, I take it, is tight knit. Your immediate family? Yes. By that I mean Tom and Karen, your folks, or you and Tim, Katie and Kelly and Teresa? Yes. But you guys also have a pretty good extended family in the area, as I understand it? Yes, we do. Has the family been in Calumet County or this area for generations? Yes, yeah. Okay, I mean, in other words, you know Pam Sturm, you were saying is a first cousin once removed? Correct. I couldn't possibly tell you how you got there, but I mean, you have got all kinds of cousins, aunts, uncles? Yes. That kind of thing in the area? Yes. So, in addition to Teresa's friends, you had a lot of family to pull on when looking for her. Correct. This effort to retrace her steps on October 31st, did that get going, Mr. Halbach, pretty much right away, the evening that you all reported her missing? Yeah, yeah, we had talked about where we knew Teresa was on the 31st, what appointments she had, where she was supposed to be before then, where she was supposed to be after then, and the days following as well. Okay, on the 31st, were you able to nail down appointments? Yes. So, I mean, do you think it was that Thursday night that you figured out that Avery Auto Salvage was one of the appointments, if you remember? I don't remember exactly if it was that night or if it was the next day or it was one of those two, either Thursday night or Friday morning, the 4th? Yes. Okay. And at some point, pretty quickly, the media all got interested in this. Am I recalling that correctly? Yes. Was it Friday already on the TV? They were talking about the Avery Auto Salvage or flying over it, that kind of thing? I don't recall specifically myself, seeing the media involvements saying Steven Avery, but I know that they reported on the missing persons case involving my sister that Thursday night. Oh, right away, Thursday night? Correct. And then Friday, and I know by Saturday, there was a lot of media coverage? Yes. Not that you were watching it. I mean, you were out, that you were just sort of aware of it? Yes. Did you Did you have access to her computer passwords or account information for, like, her cell phone, for example, or bills, that kind of thing? A cell phone, yes. Computer password, yes. She had shared that with you at some time earlier? I did business work for her, website graphics. So, oh, yeah, I just knew it through that. So you knew it through that, correct? Because you would have a reason to get on her computer to help her with her website? Well, I didn't have to go on her computer, but I had to connect to a web host, sure, just to put stuff for her website. So, okay, I'm nodding like I know what you are talking about, and I really don't. But the point is that you had access to her password information so you could check her cell phone bill. I never did. I don't know. So since I never did, I wouldn't know if I had the right password for her cell phone bill. I knew, okay, her password for her voicemail. And that's where I was going. I think I think on Thursday evening, November 3rd, somebody was able to get at her cell phone records on the computer, but that was not you? I don't think on her computer. No. Okay. You didn't have her voicemail? I said I did have her voicemail password. You did have her voicemail password. Okay. Did you check voicemails? I did. Do you remember when you did that? It was probably Thursday evening, early evening. After your mom, yes, had, yes, filed a missing persons report? Yes. Okay. So I take it you were at work earlier that day. Correct. And the missing person report was sort of at the end of the day, 5 o'clock or something? Correct. Were you familiar enough with Teresa Halbach's everyday stuff to know what she carried keys to? I mean, yes, I think I would have an idea of what keys she would have. Yes. Okay, let's start with the house that she and Scott Blodorn were sharing. This was the older farmhouse? At one point it was a farmhouse. Okay. Is it actually on the Halbach farm or just next door, or it's next door, my parents' home, the house and the land? Okay, but it's not, it doesn't share a driveway at all? Yeah, it has its own driveway. Separate parcel, but next door. Correct. Can you see the two houses from one another? You have to look through a line of evergreens and there's a big shed a little further back, but you can see it through the trees. Yes. But they are next door neighbors, essentially, although it's a rural area. Correct. Okay. And I take it there was a house key to the house. Go ahead. Yes, there was. Do you know whether there was a separate garage key? I believe that's correct. Okay. I would imagine there was. And do you have any way of knowing whether Teresa would also have had keys to your folks' house? I don't think she did. You told us the Toyota was the only car she was driving. So she didn't have keys to other cars, as far as you know? Correct, she didn't. No other keys. Swipe card for the gym? I can't recall if she specifically had a swipe card. She must have had something to get into the gym. I forget what it would have been. Okay. And if you know, was she someone with, like, a lot of people, I guess, who would have had some doodads or charms or that kind of thing on the keychain? I don't ever recall her having any of that. A lot of fancy stuff on her keychain? No. Okay. The gathering was at Grandpa's house on Sunday, October 30th? That's correct. For his birthday? Correct. And then I think we're there, if you know, had she had plans to go to a Halloween party the Saturday night right before that? I believe so. Earlier in the evening, she was helping me with the wedding, shooting a wedding video. After that, I think she would have went to a Halloween party. I believe that's correct. Okay, Saturday night, October 29th? Right. Yeah, it would have been later on in the night. Let's just sort of help the jury with that. You're a videographer. You're in the video business? Correct. So not only would she be a photographer for weddings, but you also videotape weddings as a business or a side business at times. Well, that was the only one that I had. That was my first time, and I hadn't done one since then. Okay, but the two of you were helping each other out with that one? Right. I didn't notice one in the picture, whichever number it was, where Teresa is standing next to her Toyota when she has got her camera. I didn't notice there, but did she ordinarily carry a purse? I don't recall her having a purse. Well, I can't say for sure. That's okay. That's all right. How about, I mean, did you notice, was she a jewelry person? Bracelets, necklaces? Not a whole lot of jewelry, really, at all. I don't, maybe a couple of rings? Not bracelets, though, or necklaces? Probably not too often. How about earrings? I don't recall her wearing earrings very often either. And Attorney Strang says, that's all I have. Thank you. The court says, Mr. Kratz, any redirect? And Attorney Kratz says, not for this witness, Judge. Thank you. Court says, very well, you are excused. Attorney Kratz says, next witness, Judge. And the court says, you may call your next witness. And in the next episode, the next witness that they're going to call is Tom Pierce, who worked in the photography business with Teresa. And that's where we'll leave things for right now. Today, we heard from Michael Halbach, Teresa's younger brother. And yeah, that was hard to listen to at times. You could feel his heartbreak as he talked about his sister, who was loving. She was an ambitious photographer, someone who was driven, independent, and deeply connected to her family. He also talked about those early days after she disappeared, the posters, the phone calls, the desperate searches, and that terrible, awful moment when her vehicle was finally found, but just her vehicle, not her. Now, let's talk about Kratz's questioning. And I was going to say, hey, I'm not trying to nitpick, but yeah, I am. It was rough. I mean, it was really choppy. The phrasing was awkward. Half the time I felt like he was fumbling through a checklist without really listening. It didn't read as confident or clear. And, for the state's first witness, that should have landed a lot better than it did. Then we get to Dean Strang's cross-examination. And while that was pretty short, it was telling. He didn't go into this swinging. Instead, he asked about Teresa's personality, her independence, her routines. And you might wonder, why bother with these details? But here's the thing. Strang's laying a foundation. He's reminding the jury that this was a woman who knew how to take care of herself. And that's the kind of thing that starts to chip away at the state's narrative. At least I believe that's where the defense is going with this. Before we end this, though, first off, thank you. Thanks, huge thanks for listening and sticking with this trial read. There's a lot to take in, and there is a lot more to come. If you've been following since episode 1, I appreciate you more than you know. If you're just jumping in, now is a great time to catch up. You'll find the link for the first episode in the show's description, show notes, etc. Also, a really, really, really quick heads up. As this trial continues, we're going to start to get into some exhibits, and some were touched on today. But honestly, some of these can be tough to look at. Some are graphic. Some may be flat out disturbing. I will blur anything too gruesome here on YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, to keep up with their community guidelines. But if you want full access to every exhibit, including these unedited versions, you will find those on Patreon. And again, the link for that is in the show notes. It's only $5 a month. You get early access to all of the episodes and all of the trial exhibits that I actually have access to. All right. Until next time, take care of yourselves. I will see you back here for the next episode. We will talk soon. Bye for now.